Windchime, Windchime, you're just like me, just a hollow shell dangling on a line, tossing round in random time. I actually started out on piano, and I didn't pick up a ukulele until I was 15. It was around my sophomore year of high school, and I guess you could say I gravitated to the instrument for two reasons. One, because I was fascinated with miniatures. I had a miniature collection, and it was like a small guitar, and so I, of course, liked it for that reason. And also, I enjoy all things musical. And I happened to be homesick this day from school, and my mom and I watched The Jerk. And there's a scene in there with Steve Martin and Bernadette Peters on the beach, and he's playing a ukulele and she plays a trumpet, and they sing the duet, "Tonight You Belong to Me." And I just thought it was, so cute, and I loved what he was playing. And so I asked my mom what it was, and she said, "Oh, that's a ukulele. You know, that used to be popular in my mom's day." And I said, "Can I get one?" And she took me to Danny D's not long after that, and I got my first ukulele. It only cost me $24. It was a little Hilo, and the funny thing was I took it with me to school the next day. Like, I was so proud of having the ukulele, and I just thought it was fascinating. So I started carrying it around with me to school, and I think that was because that was one of the biggest draws to me about the instrument, was that it was just so compact and portable. And being kind of someone who, you know, like I have to be moving around constantly. So I really liked that aspect of the instrument. And so I brought it with me to school, and I remember my boyfriend at the time, who was in journalism, and I had actually switched out of PE into his class to be with him. He said to me, "What are you going to do with that?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to learn how to play this, and I'm going to write songs on it." And he's like, "Oh, really?" Because he knew I played piano, and I sent him little tapes and everything. He's like, "You're never going to learn that." Because, I mean, nobody had even heard of ukulele. There was no one who could teach it. Anyway, I think I proved him wrong. A good song is kind of like a good recipe. You know, you have to have, I mean, anyone can follow a recipe and come up with, you know, like putting in a cup of flour and you know, whatever, and follow it to the T. But a good song is kind of like a good recipe in that all of the ingredients that you use in the song are in just the right amounts, with not too much and not too little, but it has a certain extra quality, which I think is when people, and I'm not a good cook, but my husband is, and when you put love into what you do, I think you can taste the difference. And I think it's the same way with music. So I don't know, I think the songs that I consider to be my best songs are the songs that I feel have a lot of love in them, so to speak. Like, I really crafted them. I took the time to put an effort into it. Mostly I start with melody, because that is the language I'm more familiar with. I enjoy the English language immensely, and people who know me know I like to use a lot of big words, but I like to use them appropriately. And I love reading. And so I love what language can do in terms of lyrics, and I love really lots of imagery and interesting word combinations, portmanteau words, and things like that. The juxtaposition of, I love playing with words. Play with words is a big thing I started getting into lyrically. But I think my base has always been the melody. I fool around with something that sounds good, and that informs the lyrical content for me, because I find that when I have a song, the idea for what that song is about comes to me from the melody. I like to fit them together. But I've done songwriting experiments where I actually start in reverse, which is harder for me to do, but I created a poem once about the moon called Phoebe, and I started where I had no idea what the song was going to sound like, and I just wrote the poem out, and then I turned it into a song, and it actually turned out pretty well, I think. In terms of having a flirtatious aspect to my music, I like to think more that I'm not. It's not about arousing someone's sexuality, but it's about arousing their spirit, which, you know, and I mean in terms of the passion, a passion for life, which I think can lead to those two. I mean, those are very different things, but they come from the same place. So, you know, I'm not opposed to the idea of being flirtatious when I'm on stage as part of my performance. But my overall goal is not to get you, you know, hot and bothered. That's not, you know, that's not what I'm about. But I think that emotion in and of itself is something powerful to play with because it gets people excited. And you got to start from, it's like a painter choosing their palette, you know, like that's one of the colors I'm choosing to help, you know, get the overall, I guess, attitude or emotion that I want. And there were a lot of women actually who played ukulele that their names weren't real big, mostly because they were women, you know, but I think about iconic women from the past, like Mae West and Marilyn Monroe, and even Billie Holiday, and these are more later. But from the 20s, like Greta Garbo and who else? The one Isadora Duncan, much older, and then she you know, she was a naturist, and so she danced around in the nude and whatever. But I think about in terms of the vaudeville and the burlesque, like for me, because I'm not wanting to actually emulate any of those people, I want to be my own self, like I don't spend a lot of time, like I'm not trying to be contrived in that way. So I don't spend a lot of time like listening to that because I actually find that that comes out naturally just because of the music that I have listened to and the instrument that I've chosen to work with and my natural range of my voice, what I do with my voice. I just kind of fit in that bracket. So I compare myself to those things because people get it. That makes sense to them. But as far as influences from that era, like, I mean, I one of the first actual ukulele inspired pieces of a CD that I bought was a CD by Cliff Edwards, who is better known as the voice of Jiminy Cricket from Pinocchio. He was actually really good on uke, and I bought a whole CD of his stuff. Another one is, oh gosh, he was amazing, and he played ukulele, but he played everything. They called him the Wizard of the Strings, and now his name is escaping me. It'll come back to me. Let me get back to you on that. And like I've heard people drop names like you know, Arthur Godfrey and Mel Bay and you know, and I'm familiar with them, but it's not like you know, it's not like in my spare time I'm sitting around listening to those guys ad infinitum, like on repeat. I hear a thing here and I hear a thing there, but I mean, I'm an indie rock kid. I listen to new stuff. I listen to what people are coming out with on the independent labels, and a lot of it is, I mean, I have a fondness for pop sensibility. Like, I mean, I like stuff with good melody construction. I love harmonies. And I've got some rock roots, but I'm not hard rock. You know, I'm more of a pop kid, I think, in that respect, like pop rock. But what I really like, what I've started to notice in kind of the new genres that are coming out now is now you've got things like orchestral pop, which I think is really interesting because I love, I mean, my mother loves classical music. So I grew up with classical music in my head. And I went to school and I did minor in music, and so I had a lot of that background into classical training and music theory and ear training, and there's a lot of classical music that I like and orchestral things. because they're complex. I love the complexity of it. And I think that you get that with things like prog rock, and you get that with things like, jazz even. And jazz is definitely something that I think that I have roots in with my music. I start from that base. But I think, especially with the new stuff that I've started to write, I'm trying to branch out from that and actually write not just for ukulele, as I have been doing, but to write on the ukulele as though I'm writing for other instruments, which I think is starting to create a much more different soundscape. And I'm coming up with some really interesting things doing that. So this is a song I wrote about 10 years ago on the Bolivar Peninsula, within eyesight of the island. I was in the backyard listening to a wind chime my parents had in our big oak tree out back. It's called Windchime. Windchime, windchime, you're just like me, just a hollow shell dangling on a line, tossing round in random time. Windchime, windchime, you seem so free, like you'd fly away if you could, but you're tied to a piece of wood, and it's so sad to see. Windchime, windchime, your song echoes of stories old, of mystery and pirate's gold. Windchime, windchime, this can't be your destiny, a minstrel trapped in melancholy key, locked beside your prison tree. And I know the wind to be a heartless friend. Oh, how she loves to tease, though she knows you can't follow, she beckons to you with her breeze. But windchime, windchime, I know your dreams, so I will cut you loose, this tether thrown, your home at sea you know, so roam it freely. And I will sing your melody when I yearn to set sail, and pray you make it safely to your land of fairy tale. Windchime, windchime, you're just